जयधारी माँ। हर जीवन अनेक प्रकार के रंगों से भरा हुआ है। बातचीत वही रंग बांटेगी आप सबके साथ। हम सब एक हैं, बस सोच अलग अलग है। बटोर लीजिए उन रंगों को, जो भी आप चाहें इस बातचीत से, और ढाल लीजिए अपनी सोच में। यही मकसद है इस बातचीत का। आइए मिलते हैं अपने प्यारे से मेहमान से। अतिथि देवो भव।
जयधारी माँ।
जयधारी माँ।
जयधारी माँ। जय धारेश्वर महादेव। ओम नमः शिवाय। हमारी ऑडियंसेस का बहुत बहुत स्वागत है। विश यू ऑल अ वेरी वेरी ब्लेस्ड महाशिवरात्रि। मन में आया, एक पेड़ देखा, एक पेड़ की पिक्चर थी सामने, and I really wondered that this tree was once a seed. It was a little sapling. It was a seed. This power we all have. What we are sowing, no matter what our life situation is, this power we all have. What are we sowing? Our scriptures, our knowledge is about this. The essence of all our scriptures, all of them, I feel, this is my belief, is knowledge getting translated into powerful nishkam karma, which further does not lead to vasanas and more karma. You have to set yourself free. You have to be the light. जो हमारे आज की अतिथि हैं, जया रोजी, माइक्रोबायोलॉजिस्ट से उन्होंने अपनी प्रोफेशनल लाइफ को शुरू करा। आज जानेंगे what happened to Vedanta vision. She, in her own very calm, serene, focused way, is spreading the light of knowledge. आइए उन पर एक वीडियो देखते हैं और फिर चर्चा करेंगे।
Thank you so much, Jaya. Thank you.
Jai
My
Dharima.
pleasure.
Yes,
Thank you so
Hare
much.
Krishna. Ji.
Hare Krishna.
Jaya ji, very, very welcome. Very welcome. Thank you for your time. Ji,
Thank you. My pleasure.
Ji, we start our Baatcheet today with you. And thank you for such a rich experience of knowledge that you have. Jayaji, what does it mean? I was watching one of your videos, and it's a beautiful thing what you said. You must have an appetite to live life, and you must have the stomach to digest life. Your thoughts on that, Ji?
Yes. Just as if you have an upset stomach, you can't enjoy the best food that is laid out before you. You need to have that appetite for food, which is an inherent God given gift for all human beings. We can't live unless we have this appetite for food. And this can happen only when you are healthy and you have that zest for life. So, similarly, in life in general, many of us have this dyspepsia, a kind of a sickness, nausea for life, because we haven't approached it the right way. We haven't learned the technique of living. Now, once you learn the technique of living, you develop this healthy appetite for life where you can go out into the world, enjoy life, enjoy every little thing that the world has to offer, and yet, as you rightly said, have the capacity to digest unfavorable circumstances, digest the challenges of life. So we need both the appetite to enjoy the good things of life as well as the capacity to digest the unfavorable, negative challenges of life. Because the world is a mix of both joy and sorrow, profit and loss, pleasure and displeasure, so on and so forth. So it's important that we develop both.
Ji.
Jaya, when does this begin? When do you start learning this technique of living? When does it begin?
Ideally, it should begin at age 7 or 8. That is when the Upanayanam ceremony is conducted, where it indicates the birth of the intellect. Because as children, our intellect is dormant. So for the first 7 years, we are still trying to figure things out. But at age 8, we develop the capacity to think for ourselves. In fact, in modern times, this happens much earlier. But traditionally, it is at age 7 or 8, where you begin the education by asking questions of the child, by sharing a few stories with the child, in a way that the child can understand, relate to, and figure it out for himself or herself. And then, as the child grows, then you start teaching the principles of Vedanta, and that age differs from child to child. For instance, I was 7 when I was first exposed to a lecture, a full length lecture. And I remember not having understood most of it, but coming home with a very powerful thought that maybe someday I should be around people like that, you know. And strangely enough, it has happened. So at that young age, there is as Saina rightly said, the seeds are sown. When they will blossom and when they will come to fruition, we don't know. So you just sow the seeds in the child and then nurture it, nourish it, and wait for it to blossom.
Ma'am,
Why?
does the Guna.
Who should be
Ji.
doing this? Who should be doing? Because this is, I think, the crux we're holding because of today's crime situation in Delhi. Terrible crimes. Have you seen how women are being butchered? You mean to say that these seeds were not sown? And who sows these seeds? And what are those seeds? I think it's a
Yes,
very important answer, question and answer today.
yes. These seeds, unfortunately, have not been sown. As David Frawley says, the Indian populace has lost touch with its tradition and philosophy for a millennium. And that coincides with the invasions. If you look at history, invasions into India, the deterioration among royal families, deterioration among the intellectuals, and all this has come to a head now. Ideally, the parents should teach the child, preferably through example, not by teaching, not verbal teaching, but by just living high principles. Children automatically pick them up. I often say children don't listen to what the parent says, but the child watches very carefully how the parent lives and emulates that. So the first lessons are taught in the home, and then in school, where there is a more formal kind of education of Vedanta and its values. Now, none of this is being done. The accent in schools is on marks. We have a program for school children. No trustee of the school wants it, no teachers, principal wants it, no parents want it, and of course, the children uh, don't want it because they don't know what it is. But and when problems arise, parents come to me and I say it is the children are not at fault. 100% of the time, it is the parents who are at fault, the adults who are at fault, and the child unnecessarily suffers. So the child grows up with lack of values, and that leads to crime and other things.
Thank you
Ma'am,
so much.
how important,
I can't
Go
hear
ahead.
you.
how important is the guna code? Because
Yes,
how important is the gunas? Because we're carrying them. And that's what
yes.
we really need to work on by understanding how to balance our gunas.
Yes. See, gunas are a classification of our thoughts and our traits, inner traits, into three distinct categories. And this is India's most valuable contribution to the understanding of the human mind. Nowhere else in the world do you find it. So the three grades are A, B, C. The best, sattva, purity. The mediocre, rajas, passion, and the worst, tamas or apathy, indolence, lethargy. All human beings have all three. It is the permutation and combination of the three that makes for the variety of human beings in the world. So, if we are serious about our development, about becoming a better human being, we need to understand what these three traits, gunas, are, how they function in our personality and in others, and how to tap into the best in you, how to, that is the sattva, how to refine the rajas, and how to eliminate tamas. Today, unfortunately, because we don't know this, most of us are operating out of our worst and neglecting our best. So it's like having a garden with weeds, lawn, and exotic flowers, and you are promoting the weeds, adding manure, water to the weeds, and totally neglecting the exotic flowers. So the sattva in us needs to be nurtured, nourished, encouraged, and this is unfortunately not being done.
I think this is what you mentioned in this book. You
Yes,
mentioned it very well in Beyond Harvard. This is your very good book, which I've read very carefully. And I
thank
want to
you.
read benefit the readers from this book. I think just beautiful book. You said four components are not equally distributed. That is, you are not 25% physical, 25% emotional, 25% intellectual, and 25% spiritual. There is a weighted average, you said. About 1% of your personality is physical, 3% is emotional, 6% intellectual, and the balance 90% is spiritual. Oblivious of this, you focus primarily on the body. That's what you said beautifully. It's a body worship. You use the word body worship, and that's exactly what is happening today. Is bodies being butchered, And
Yes.
all of these live in relationships coming in is body worship. Can I have your comments on this, please? This is the book where I read it from.
Yes. You see, first of all, we see the body. It is the grossest part of our personality. So when you can see your hands, you can see your body, you look in the mirror, you see your physical body. The mind and intellect comprise the inner personality, which you don't see, but you can recognize because you have feelings, love, hatred, jealousy, so on and so forth, and you have the capacity to think and analyze. But the spirit is not seen, not touched. There is no way of contacting the spirit. But just as, do you see butter in milk? No. But when you know there is butter in milk and you learn the technique of extracting butter from milk, then life becomes a pleasure because you have extracted the best from milk. Similarly, you don't see spirit in life, in the world, in you, but there is a technique of extracting that spirit. And that technique is where your mind must be made lukewarm, just as milk is made lukewarm. Means lukewarm means you have enough experiences of the world. You're not a person who doesn't know anything about the world, nor are you too hot, like you're not partying every day till 4 a.m. You're middle way. And then you introduce just a little bit of spiritual thought, which is preferably first thing in the morning. You study, you expose yourself to spiritual thought, and let that soak in your personality. Then the fluid mind, which is running all over the place, restless and causing problems, becomes steady, solid, like curd. Milk becomes curd. And then you churn the mind. Churn means assertion of reality, assertion of the higher, and negation of the lower. Then, in the white heat of meditation, when you heat butter, ghee forms. Ghee is more permanent, butter turns rancid. Similarly, in the mind, when you meditate, in that heat of meditation, you get the permanent, which is the spirit. So, this is the way of extracting it. But it all begins, it doesn't start with meditation, it starts with selfless service, it starts with karma yoga. Then you move to bhakti yoga, jnana yoga, subtler forms, and reduce your desires. Then you become what is known as open eyed meditation. You know, you open your eyes, you're interacting with the world, but there is one aspect of your mind that is anchored in the higher. Then you are fit for meditation, and you explode into that state of realization.
Yes, you
This is
said
the
it in your
procedure.
book. You can
Yes,
start with the chanting and gradually you merge with the chant. You said it
yes,
in one of your books that you start with Om, you said
yes,
Om, you can start with chanting and then you go deeper, and Om then is not behind, but you go on. That's what you said.
yes. You
Can you
end
explain?
in the silence.
Sorry? Yeah.
You stop the chant, and what
Yes,
remains is silence.
that's right. Correct.
Ji, ma'am, knowledge is awareness. Now, how can awareness take you away from the world? It will equip you and fortify you to navigate through life. So, why so much of fear of this knowledge?
Because the modern generation is clued into what we call as instant gratification, instant pleasure. Now, when they come across something like knowledge, which does not give instant pleasure, in fact, in the beginning, it gives you a little bit of displeasure, they reject it. But the beauty of life, or the fact of life, is that anything that gives you pleasure in the beginning gives you sorrow in the end. And that which is little painful in the beginning gives you everlasting happiness in the end. This must be understood, learned, and lived. See, anything worthwhile in life is unpleasant in the beginning. When a cricketer starts playing cricket and starts training, it's not pleasant. But his eyes are set on being in the test team and winning laurels and accolades and having so many fans, so on and so forth. Similarly, an athlete must have the goal of the Olympic gold, and then he is able to go through the grind, which is not pleasant. Similarly, in spirituality, although the fruit, the net result is infinite happiness, we don't see it in the beginning. We only see the rigor, the initial pain. If you exercise, if you exercise every day, when you wake up in the morning, there's something in you which says, "Chalo yaar, go to sleep," you know, because it is distasteful. But when you understand how it functions, you decide that for a few moments of pleasure, I am not going to give up a lifetime of happiness. So, that knowledge, that little bit of knowledge, must be conveyed to the youth of today so that they make the right choices, the right decisions in life.
You said in the book, one of your books, and just give me 2 minutes. You said the mind can be likened to a virus in a computer, and the intellect is like the antivirus software.
Yes.
How do you understand this? How do the youngsters and we people understand this?
Okay. See, the mind is full of likes and dislikes, loves and hates, impulse. It opts for instant pleasure.
Yes.
So it does not have the capacity to figure out what is in your interest and what is not in your interest. It may like things that are not good for you, and it may dislike things that are good for you. So the mind has the capacity, and the mind is full of desires. So it has the capacity to wreck your inner personality, to ruin you. It is the intellect which has the capacity to analyze, to discriminate, to weigh the pros and cons, and arrive at the right decision. So the intellect needs to govern the mind, guide the mind, supervise the mind. Then you have a wonderful collaboration between the mind and the intellect. Otherwise, the mind and intellect go in separate ways, and you are a torn personality within.
Is conscience another name of our intellect?
Excellent question. Conscience is see, the intellect is of two types. They say Tikshna Buddhi or gross intellect and Sukshma Buddhi or subtle intellect. This subtle intellect is what we call conscience. It is the pole star. It's like the mariner's compass that points only in one direction. It points north. Similarly, our conscience points towards the highest being God or spirit or Atman. So that's why Shakespeare said, "To thine own self be true, and it must follow as light the day, thou canst not then be false to any man." So, if only each person were true to his or her own conscience, there would be no problems in the world. But each
Does
person's conscience will say different things.
does the
One person,
conscience speak? Does the conscience speak to you?
not in so many words, but yes, it tells you very definitely, very specifically what is right, what is wrong, what is higher, what is lower, what you should do, what you should not do. But because of the force of desires, we overthrow the conscience and do what we want.
How does one listen to the conscience and become conscious of the conscience?
By through education of Vedantic values, when you are exposed to higher values, even as a child, the interesting thing is, even a very young child knows right from wrong. So the conscience is there even in children. But when you help the child to be aware of it, excuse me, and act on it, then the conscience becomes strong. and the child doesn't waver. Like I have seen a 9-year-old child say, when the parents are non-vegetarian, this little girl is vegetarian, and she says, "Do you have a pet dog? How would you like to kill the dog and eat it?" It's the same as eating meat. You're killing animals and eating. So she is very strong. Her conscience very strongly tells her not to, that it is wrong to kill animals and eat. I'm not saying that everyone's conscience should say that. Someone else's conscience may say it's perfectly all right to eat meat, but that's a different thing. But when you encourage the child to listen to the conscience, to ask the child, what do you think is right, you know in these circumstances, what is the right thing to do? For instance, cheating in an exam, do you think it's right? And invariably every child will say it's wrong. Then you ask, but why do you do it? Because I haven't studied for it, and if I cheat, I'll get the marks. So it's very clear that the conscience is operating, but something else comes and pushes the child to do things which he himself believes is wrong.
Are we
But
all born with
nowadays,
it?
nowadays, what's happening is even parents are encouraging children to cheat.
Jaya, are we born with a conscience? Are we
Yes,
all born with it? Is
yes,
it born with us?
yes. It's part of our inner personality. We are born with it. But during our life, we have the option of developing it and making it stronger.
Ma'am,
What
you're
does Gita
talking
say?
about,
What does Gita say about conscience?
Gita says the same thing, that you should follow the intellect, which includes the conscience. And if you act on desires, the intellect and conscience gets weak, and that's what's happening today. You see, in the 1980s, 60s, and 70s, the world economic pattern changed, and they wanted people to have more desires, buy more, because it suited them. And that has reached such proportions that it has become self destructive. And then they said, okay, you can't afford it, don't worry. Buy now, pay later. This mortgage system came, credit card system came. So now it is so easy. You just swipe and buy. You don't think of paying.
Yes,
ma'am,
Saina.
it's so important to first know yourself. We all
Yes,
have our own, we all have our own personal realities to live with. But two words which our youth can connect with is investment and empowering yourself. Your thoughts on what does it truly mean to invest in yourself? What does it mean to empower yourself? Because these two words seem to have an outer meaning. These two words only seem to mean the outside world, but it does require the inner work and the inner empowerment and the inner investment. So, how do you do that and what does it mean?
yes. See, as we've seen earlier, we have three material components, four components: body, mind, intellect, and spirit. Now, the body is the weakest part of your personality, the least potent, and that which gives you the least happiness. So, this is what we're doing. We're investing only in the physical body. So, it's all about how do I look, how am I, whether I'm presentable or not, whether I have high end brands or not, you know, and our whole life revolves around that. Now, what we mean by investment is when you invest in the mind and tap into your emotional resources, they are far more powerful, they give you far more happiness, and they control the body. The mind controls the body. Like when you are happy, the body is in top condition. Everything in the body goes well. When your mind is sorrowful, things in the body go wrong. You get hyperacidity, hypertension, all kinds of diseases. So, investing in yourself means investing in your own higher aspects of your personality, the mind, for instance. That is how I've seen an illiterate mother with a sick child goes to a hospital. The mother tells the doctor that the child has malaria. The doctor has not diagnosed it properly. Where did she get the knowledge from? Sheer love. You know, that's the power of the mind. Then you go one step further to the intellect. The intellect is much more powerful than the mind because the intellect has the capacity to go into unknown realms. That's how we have improved scientifically and technologically. We've gone to the moon and Mars. We've gone inside to atoms and all types of things inside us. So when you tap into the intellect, you tap into a more powerful entity within yourself. It has the capacity to collaborate with people whether you like them or not. Like, for instance, there was this mathematician during the Second World War in England who was brilliant. So he cracked the German secret code, which helped England win the war. So that he played such an important role. But he had problems getting along with people, and that he overcame because he understood that he had to work with people, and whether he liked them or not, they were going to help England win the war. And so he did it, you know. And then you go beyond to the spirit and you break all barriers. The forces of nature bow down to you. That is the story of Prahlad. When Hiranyakashipu, his own evil father, tried to kill him, fire lost the capacity to burn. This venom of snakes did not do anything to him. This has been put poetically, but it is true. Any of us taps into the spirit, you become invincible.
Is
So
the
this
mind
is
and the
meant by investment in yourself and consequent empowerment. This empowerment is cannot lose. This power cannot lose. The world can lose. you know I mean, you can lose a war, the COVID can raise you to the ground, all sorts of things can happen. But when you tap into the spirit, that power is invincible.
is the mind and the thoughts the same thing?
Mind and intellect both are thoughts. So
Mm.
structurally, both are thoughts, but functionally, they're different. The mind
Ah,
is just a flow of thoughts with no sense of direction or dimension. The
mm.
intellect is very definite,
The
decisive,
discerning, yeah,
clear.
that's a difference. So mind
So
is all one, whatever comes. Yeah.
when you're not sure, like you say, I don't know whether I should get married or not, it's the mind. But
Mm.
when you decide and say, no, I think I should get married or I think I should not get married, it's the intellect.
Mm.
Ma'am, you've written a lovely, um, uh, in one of your discourses, you said the children were brought up on a diet of great stories. So, and you've also given us a great diet. So let's see your heart space, which is full of love and light. Ji.
Yes. See, in ancient India, right up to, I think, my generation, we were brought up on a diet of inspiration. Like, we were told bedtime stories of wonderful people like Prahlad, Nachiketas, Dhruv, children who use their judgment and their choices to lift themselves up to the highest level, you know. And then we were told about the independence movement and how they were great heroes uh, who worked for the country. So we were brought up to believe that every one of us must follow in their footsteps. So we were presented with role models. Today's generation is brought up on Bollywood. or nothing wrong with Bollywood, but it's just that it's not inspiring enough. You know, there is no food for the soul. There's no food for the conscience. There is plenty of food for the body and for the mind. So that's why we've become, I keep telling people, we've just become a body centric population.
That's right. It's called the
And
body hold.
everyone is crazy about food. If
You talked about
5% of the energy spent on food is spent on food for the soul, we would be a much better population.
We show you what your heart is filled with. We just show it to you. Ji.
how nice that you write so well, so simply written. I could read books over the days so fast. They were so absorbing, Jaya. When do you write? When do you get the time to write?
Early in the morning. I
Oh,
wake up at 4 in the morning, and between 4 and 6 is where the majority of my work is, meaning thinking, writing, figuring out what to say, what will appeal to people,
very
all the,
nice.
because nowadays people's concentration spans have reduced. So, in a nutshell, in 30 seconds, sometimes you have to say things that will connect with people. So, all
Yes.
that requires thinking.
Mm. You
And
talked
what
about
Ma'am,
works,
what
management.
made you move towards Vedanta? What made you move towards Vedanta vision?
Before
How
that,
did you
Anna,
create it?
before that, can I ask her because she's on time management right now?
Ji.
Because she is 4 in the morning. Look at that. 4 in the morning, she gets up and she thinks, she writes. So, and she's written this in the Beyond Harvard Lessons from the World's Oldest Management School. She calls Vedanta the oldest management school, and she's written on time management. I think this is brilliant. I don't want to read what she's written, I want to hear from her on time management. I think many listeners would love to hear on time management. Jaya?
yes. See, when your intellect is strong enough, you have a clear goal in mind, and you have a clear time frame within which to achieve that goal. So then you break it up into smaller bits, so that, let's say, your goal will be reached in 5 years, let's say. So then you know every year what is to be done, in this year every month what is to be done, this week, this day, right now, what is it that I should do? So you're totally focused. Now, this
Mm.
doesn't mean you're a workaholic. You make space for holidays, vacations, fun times, parties if you want to go to. All that is included, but you have a sense of focus, a sense of direction. And like I say, every morning you wake up inspired, and every night you go to bed fulfilled that what you had planned to do has been done.
You
And
so well,
punctuality is something that is sorely lacking among Indians. That's because the mind is too strong and the intellect is weak. So I keep telling people the most successful people in the world are those who are punctual first of all. If you,
Ma'am,
because,
what
sorry,
got you here? What got you here? What got you with your journey from microbiology to Vedanta? And relentlessly you go on in such a calm and serene way. What keeps you going?
you know, I was exposed to this knowledge as a child. When my parents were abroad, when I was at school, I had to come back and spend the last 2 years of school, which means 10th and 11th standard, with my grandparents. And those were the most valuable years of my life. They shaped my life because both my parents were spiritual in different ways. My grandmother was more devotional, so she used to give kirtans, which was a combination of lecture and song. She would compose her own songs, her own lyrics, set it to the right raga, and she was brilliant at it. And my grandfather was more intellectual, so he would teach me Swami Vivekananda, Swami. He introduced me to Swami Ramatirtha, and he used to take me to lectures at Bharati Vidya Bhavan whenever he went. And so, but most importantly, they lived the high life. He used to keep telling me, simple living and high thinking should be your motto, you know, and they lived it. So that made a tremendous impact on me. After that, in college, though I lived the normal life of a teenager, going to parties, beaches, this, that, and the other, something in me brought me back to the spiritual side. And then later, I read Swami Ramatirtha's books, in which he made one statement, and that changed my life. And that was, if you're not happy as you are where you are, you will never be happy. Right that moment, I was planning to change something around me. And I said, either I'm right or he's right. And then, of course, I concluded there's no way that I'm right and he's wrong. So let's go with it. And I actually put it into practice. And it paid rich dividend. Then I told myself, if one idea can give me so much relief, what won't the entire knowledge give me? So it motivated me to quit my job and decide to do this full time. But another aspect of me was, this was something I was born with. I always wanted to do service. I wanted to serve the nation. This, even till today, I can't listen to the national anthem without being moved. You know, so my vision as a child was, I wanted to be a doctor, wear white saris, and work in villages, serve people. So the two came together. Then I realized the best way of serving was through Vedanta.
You were in the corporate world, weren't you?
For a while, yes.
And what is the difference between the corporate world of earlier days and now? You talked about the two kinds of and Vedanta, you call it the oldest management school. What's the difference between these corporate worlds of then and now?
Then it was far more peaceful, not so much stress at work. Um, but even then, we worked for something beyond ourselves. I worked for an Indian pharmaceutical company. And in those days, first of all, I was hired by mistake. They didn't somehow realize that I was a woman. And it was too late for them to say no to me, I think. They were just too polite. So they hired me almost reluctantly. And then I said, I will prove that a woman can do as well as a man. And I worked very hard and did it. And then my objective was achieved, so I quit and took to Vedanta. So even then, but then while we were working for the company, our goal was not just to make profits. Our goal was um, to fight the multinationals. Not fight actually, but to compete, to do better than the multinationals. We wanted to prove that an Indian company can do as well or maybe better than you guys, you know. So we were driven, we were motivated, and I really enjoyed that experience. Today, it's become very selfish. It's all about me and my performance, my take home salary, my growth in the career. I don't know whether they have this collective vision,
That's what
and
you've
it's all
written.
about profits.
And you say, how does Vedanta, you've written in this book, how does Vedanta differ from modern management? And this
Yes,
book says, while contemporary management styles, uh, while contemporary management styles are combative, you use the word combative, Vedanta is collaborative.
yes,
And today, post COVID, it's all about collaboration. See how we
yes.
are all learning to become more inclusive, intergenerationally, and collaborative. And you've said management thrives on the rush of adrenaline that comes from a competitive me versus you attitude. Vedanta gives sustained inspiration from a competitive me and you mindset. Vedanta helps you to be in sync with the totality rather than out of sync with everyone. This is the training which is at the moment going on in the corporate world.
Mm. It should be.
Mm.
And I
I
think we will,
yes.
if we incorporate just a few principles of Vedanta in modern management,
Mm.
Indian corporates will be better than multinationals.
Mm.
Indian corporates will become the multinationals of tomorrow
Mm.
and set an example that for others to follow.
Mm.
Because
Even in
the
public services.
yes, because the modern Western style of management has its limitations.
Mm. Mm. Saina, your question.
Ma'am, I'm very intrigued by something. We all accumulate so much of karma over lifetimes. And I do believe there are moments when God just decides to wipe the slate clean and give you a fresh beginning. How does a seeker understand and feel that moment? That, you know, the scriptures talk about prarabdha karma, sanchit karma, so much of karma. I think the Almighty can just decide one day to wipe the slate clean and give you a fresh beginning.
Yeah, it's not that the Almighty does it, it is you yourself who does it. Now, what happens is, let's say you have a million vasanas or desires, all right? Out of these, 200 are strong and they are pushing for fulfillment. So these 200 come together as one bundle and they propel you into this birth. So during this lifetime, whatever you do or not do, you are guaranteed one thing, that these 200 will be fulfilled. These are called prarabdha vasanas, as you call it, right? So death cannot take place until these 200 are fulfilled. Once these 200 are fulfilled, nothing in the world will keep you alive here, because your time has come, you have to move. Why? Because once these 200 get fulfilled, then the next bundle of, let's say, 150 start playing up. They want fulfillment. Now, this body and the surroundings are not conducive for the fulfillment of the second bundle, 150. So, it demands a change. And that change is when the movement of your inner personality from one body to another is called the death of this body, birth of the next body. So it's driven by you, it's not the Almighty. It's just that you don't know it consciously. The only thing that the Almighty has done is that set the laws in place, set the system in place so that you can move, improve towards self realization, towards God. But it's up to us. Now, these 200 get fulfilled, so you don't need to worry about them. But you can tap into the Sanchita, the entire vasanas. You can increase them, you can decrease them, you can upgrade them, you can downgrade them, you can do what you like with them. But the world, nature, the whole universe is designed in such a way that we can exhaust our Sanchita and get to God. Unfortunately, we are defying the system and we are increasing the Sanchita, which means we are condemning ourselves to many more lives. So, as the verse in the Bhagavad Gita, second chapter says, it compares us with clothes, you know. So, a rich man changes clothes once, maybe 5 times a day. In the morning, he goes for a walk, so he wears a different set of clothes, comes back, maybe wears a business suit, goes to work, comes back, then goes to a party, comes back, and wears night clothes. A poor man doesn't have the resources. He changes clothes once in 3 days, maybe. So rich in our when it comes to philosophy, if you're rich with vasanas, with desires, This happens very often. You know, this birth death cycle happens very often because you have too many desires to fulfill. As you evolve spiritually, this traumatic cycle reduces. So you are generally happier, you're content with yourself, you know how the law functions, you understand it, you accept it, and it doesn't traumatize you that much because you don't get attached to too many things. The trauma comes, the pain comes because of attachment. So if the see, pain is a given in life. There is pain, there is joy. But suffering is a choice. We choose to suffer because of unintelligent lifestyles. We just have to choose to be happy and life will be fun again. You know? Does that make sense?
What do you read more on your own? Because others read you. What do you read?
I read the Bhagavad Gita, I read the Upanishads, I read Shankaracharya's texts. That's what I read. And
Do
I
you
do a
visit?
lot of my own thinking.
Yes. Do you travel to these spiritual places? Do you? Or normally do you read? Or do you visit to some of these ancient temples or places of
No, I
you stay
don't
back?
go because I follow what the Upanishads have said, which is that when you purify your mind, your home becomes an ashram. Hmm? So you don't need to go to an ashram or a temple or a place of pilgrimage. When you purify your mind, you bring the Himalayas to your home.
What's your daily routine?
I wake up at 4, I study till 6, then I do a little bit of exercise between for half an hour, 45 minutes, and then do a little few things around the house, my duties in the house. Then I get ready and go to work. We have an office close by, and I work till about 1:32. Then I come home, have lunch. Because I've woken up early, I take a little break, a rest in the afternoon. And evenings, usually, I have lectures or I sit by myself and do some work for the following week or whatever, prepare for the next
So what do
events.
you do in the office? What's your office? The Vision office? Your Vedanta office?
Yes, because we have a few people coming in to work to help us.
What's
So
your one
earlier,
message? Give me your
sorry,
one message to people. Give me your one message the youth is waiting to know, particularly about the crimes which are happening, terribly violent crimes. What's the one message what youth must imbibe, or the society must imbibe, or the parents, teachers may imbibe? What is it that one message? Because I know you said we must finish by 6. You have a session to go to. What is your one message?
the one message is that just as the ocean is full of waves, and a person who wants to surf the waves needs to learn the technique of dealing with the waves. Similarly, life is full of challenges. If you want to live life, you need to learn the technique of dealing with challenges. If a small just as when a small wave comes, the guy surfs over it, rides over it. If a big wave comes, he ducks under it. We have to learn this technique. If a small challenge comes, ride over it. If a big challenge comes and you know there's no way you can win, duck, let it pass, and then you live your life. You know, and this one thing, uh, along with the thought that you can't change anyone else in the world. The only person in the world you can change is yourself. So look within, change yourself, your world will change. The world will change dramatically because the world is a projection of your mind. A criminal's mind projects a criminal's world. A sadhu's mind projects a sadhu's world. A stockbroker's mind projects a stockbroker's world. So if you are not happy with your world, You can't go out there and change it. Look within, change your thoughts, your world will change. And if every person changes thoughts to the positive, our country will change, our city will change, the world will change.
Do you have any more minute, or we let you go
Yes.
because you?
No, actually, I have as much time as you want.
Oh, great. So give me a message for teachers then, because teachers also need. Give a message for teachers and parents. Separate for teachers and parents, or are they the same?
For teachers, remember that you are the creators of the next generation. And so be very careful how you behave with the kids. It is your behavior and that matters, that the children will pick up, not the subjects that you teach. So, yes, it is important to teach subjects, but it is more important to come out as as a good person, a person of character, a person that the children will look up to and remember all their lives. Like I remember my teachers all my life, they have been my inspiration.
And parents, a message for parents.
For parents, you have wealth in your hands. Every child is worth his weight in gold. It's for you. It's like Michelangelo said, every block of wood or stone has a beautiful statue in it. All you have to do is remove the excess material. Your role in life is to provide the child with a positive environment so that he or she may grow the way nature has designed it to grow. A mango seed can only become a mango tree. It cannot become a coconut tree just because you want it to. So don't try and live your ambitions vicariously through your children. Don't pressurize them. Give them the freedom to grow the way they want to grow. I must quote Dr. Abdul Kalam, one of our most fantastic presidents. He said, our children are born happy. We are the ones who wipe that smile off their faces. And he said, it is my mission to bring back the smile on the face of every child. The parents must remember this. Because as Swami Ramatirtha said, your only duty in life is to be happy. If you can add to the happiness of your child, you have fulfilled your duty as a parent.
Very fantastic. I think we needed these messages and reiterated them. Yes, Sana?
Ma'am, you have a beautiful voice and you chant. So I've heard your mantras. Can you chant a mantra for us?
You know, I've had a bad throat and I'm not quite normal, but what mantra would you like?
Any mantra that is coming to your mind and heart, whatever you want to speak to
Okay.
us.
Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Would you be kind enough to share the meaning with us?
Yes. This is one of the invocations in of several Upanishads, a very important invocation. It says, Purnamada means that is Purna, it's infinite. Brahman, God, is infinite. Purnam Idam, this world is also infinite. You know, the world consists of time, space, causation. All three never end. Time goes on forever. Space is forever. You can't imagine the universe like a bubble, it just goes on and on. And creation. Your fathers went on, and your son will go on. Purnat Purnamudachate. From that Purna, from that infinite, this infinite has come about. From Brahman, which is infinite, this world which is infinite has come about. After taking away this infinite from that infinite, what remains is infinite. To that I bow.
Thank you.
So,
See,
this invocation has a very powerful effect, just the chant. I didn't do justice to it, but if you powerfully chant, it has an impact. And when you learn the meaning, it is amazing.
You mentioned the gurus. You dedicated your book to gurus. Gurus. Who are those gurus? Are they by name or it's a cosmos?
It includes all, includes the individual's gurus, but if you trace it back, it goes back to ancient India, to the Saptarishis, to those people who discovered these laws in the first place. If they hadn't done their bit, we wouldn't have the knowledge.
That's
And
true.
with every passing generation, there have been countless gurus who have done their research, their sacrifices to pass on the message to us. That's
That's
why I've
true.
deliberately used it in plural and not
Yes,
limited it to specific gurus.
that's right. Our inheritance,
Mm,
our peers, our saints, our,
absolutely.
our rishis, our munis.
And we as Indians are very fortunate to have been born in the land of the rishis. We are the most unintelligent people who are not tapping into this wealth. Once we do that, everything will fall in place. We will go
You know,
back to the golden era where we were prosperous, successful, but we had high values, where there
correct.
were no locks in houses because nobody would steal. What a state.
Yes,
And today we talk about women being, crimes against women. In those days, women were put on a pedestal. The highest respect was given to women because they understood that the woman has a unique place in life. Um, and if you don't look after your women, future generations get destroyed.
you've given the antidote, you've given the answers to the current ongoings. Everybody's asking what went wrong, how do we sort out these youth, what's happening. I think this is the answer, is to spiritualize the upbringing by strong value systems.
Yes, particularly among girls.
And
See, what
boys,
happens is when we get empowered, then the problem is solved.
and boys today.
And boys, yes. I often tell people, who does a child bully in school? A weak person.
Yes,
So the moment you become strong, the bully leaves you alone and goes to the next weak person.
correct.
So our duty in life is just to become strong,
Yes,
spiritually strong.
correct.
There is a
That,
story
yes,
of a beautiful lady who was in the forest, and a prince went there and saw her and was running after her or wanting her. She started running, and she ran and ran and ran. Finally, out of fatigue, she fell and fainted. So the prince went and put a few drops of water on her eyes to revive her. And the story goes, she opened her eyes and he turned to dust. So she was running not to save herself, but to save him from his own bad act.
imagine.
So that is what happens when we develop the strength.
Thank you so much, Jay. We can't thank you enough for very, very precious time you gave us. You were one call away for us. We were so grateful,
Thank,
Jay.
thank
You
you
did
very much.
you did this in Pondicherry also, and when I requested you to come to Raj Devas, and you were so kind to spare your time. You're very generous, very kind, and very compassionate, very giving.
Thank you. You are the inspiration for many, many people, and
Thank
I will always be with you anytime you want me. So please feel free to call me anytime.
Thank you so much for being such a wonderful friend.
And
Thank you,
Sana,
ma'am.
this is the first time I've met you, but it's a great, I feel as if I've known you all my life. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
ma'am.
Jaya.
Thank
Look
you.
forward to
Thank you for
more
your
books from
blessings.
you. Now we can have a book from you for teenagers,
Yes, absolutely.
Vedanta for teenagers. I think that will be a very, very precious book.
Sure.
The Vedanta for education, which is teachers and parents and students. I think one combined. Thank you.
Okay. Thank
Thank you.
you.
Thank you.
थैंक यू मैम जी, प्रणाम। जयधारी में आप सबको और हमारी ऑडियंसेस का बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया। आपको अगले महीने मिलेंगे एक और बातचीत के साथ। जाते जाते, जिंदगी को जीना एक कला है, लेकिन जिंदगी को महसूस करना उनकी कृपा है।
But
तो
these books
महसूस
can be
कीजिए,
read. These
महसूस
books
कीजिए।
can be read and learned. Lot of learning in these books, just plenty. And they're very light, very fast reading. So very, very absorbing too. Thank you so much, Jay. Thank
Thank you.
जी, मिलेंगे अगले महीने। जी,
you.
जय धारी माँ।